So welcome. We're going to go through a majuscule A, how to write it, and then we'll analyse it. I have got, this is Tomoe River paper on top of just your bog standard grid paper, which I've drawn the slant lines on. I've used them over and over. And then I am using an oblique holder with a Leonard Principle nib, and this is black watercolour ink. So my X height is 5mm here, so my capitals are 2 to 1 to 2, so they are going to be 15mm high. I'm going to start off with a backwards universal line of beauty. Make sure that when you do this, that the middle third right here is parallel as close as you can to the slant line. Your other thirds should be slowly moving until the very, very top is parallel to the guideline, and the very bottom is parallel to the bottom line. Okay, once you're at the top, I'm then gonna do a tiny little line so that it can help guide my full pressure stroke. I struggle with doing the roll of the pen personally, so to help me instead, I complete one little line and then a full pressure stroke, and I can go in and amend that as and when I need to. Okay, so we've got the main frame of our A. From here, I'm then going to go from this bottom corner. If you can see this guideline right here, I believe this is your header line. I'm going to come up from there above my header line, and I'm going to try to keep this line in the middle of my oval, so you'll see what I mean. I'm going to come up and around. Okay, so you should be able to see that this line right here, I've tried, switch to a different colour so it's a little bit easier to see. I have tried to go as far above this line as I've gone. I've tried to go as far below. Okay, so that's just going to keep it a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And I'm going to add my terminus dot over here. Okay. I'm also, if you notice, I'm keeping that line as an integral part of my majuscule, where the then last sweep of that A is ending on that line. This I think is completely optional, depends on the rest of your word, but as we're just doing a standalone majuscule, I'm trying to make it look complete on its own. The cross of my A, I'm trying to keep with a good amount of space behind it. I find if you put it too close to your full pressure stroke, then it can look too busy. Or if you put it too far over, then it can intersect with your thinner line of universal beauty. All right, so my A is done. I'm just going to wipe off my nib really quickly. There we go. Okay, so let's analyze this right here. So on here, I should have, if I start over here, I've got no space. Oh, I do. There we go. All right. We should have a backwards I've got enough space there of universal beauty. As far as black inks go, I think watercolor inks, although they're not the most reliable in terms of thinner hairlines, and something like Walker's Copperplate ink, which is specifically designed for copperplate, would be a better idea to use, especially in finished pieces. The fact that it dries quickly for watercolor ink is a massive benefit here, because I'm obviously writing over it immediately. If I'd used Sumi ink, then there would be smudges all over the place, because it does take a long time to dry. So that's why I've chosen that ink. Then we have the, I'll move that up a little bit, there we go, the crossbar. Oh, I've got a little room over there. There we go. Begins. At the bottom right corner. The crossbar. Just going to reiterate what we said about the header line. That's all right there, yep, raises and dips. Around the header line. Evenly. So that's what I'm saying. As much as you raise above this line, I've tried to keep it below. Obviously, I'm just eyeballing it. But the closer that you can get to that ideal, the more pleasing this letter is going to look. You can just do a straight crossbar. That's not a problem. It's my little tissue to keep my hand on. So if I do this just in monoline, I can show you really quickly. So if I put that right here, I've got another shape of my A. So instead of then going and doing a flourished crossbar, we can just do a simplified one, if that is more your style, which is absolutely fine. Normally these crossbars are at the header line, so here is my header line. But depending on what letters you've got, I think it's perfectly fine to move that. So if you have, for example, let's drop mine a little bit lower so I'm not intersecting that. There we go. I'm slightly off, but that's okay. If I have a letter T, for example, which has a crossbar on the header line, doing a crossbar also on the header line is going to make it look like one big long line. So it may be in your interest to just drop it slightly. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go back to the inked one. Then we should have, okay. So we should have top of Universal Line of Beauty. I'm just going to call it from now the Universal Line of Beauty, like that. So should be parallel, and I think I'm reaching the edge of my frame here somewhere, maybe, to the second ascender line. That's your highest line. So it should be perfectly horizontal. Okay. And then we've got full pressure stroke. All the way down. That is pretty much unique to a capital A. I've seen some variations before which have had a full pressure stroke all the way down, which doesn't develop into an underturn, but I think standardized across the board, I only see that stroke in a capital letter A. all the way down. So if we're looking at like an M or something, it does turn into an underturn at the bottom. Okay, yeah, the capital A. Bear in mind that this negative space right here in the middle should be a gradually, can I fit it on there? Oh, I can. There we go. A gradually increasing. Should have picked smaller words. There we go. Increasing space. If you have a space which looks very, very much the same the entire way throughout, then your universal line of beauty is not sloped enough, and you've got too much of a middle section that is parallel. So you'll find it very difficult. You'll have almost instead of a well-balanced universal line of beauty, you'll have something that is very similar to this kind of shape. And it's not that the shape doesn't have its merits, it's just that in terms of elegance I prefer this, and it also gives you a bit more space to work with at the top and bottom, so it doesn't close everything off. Okay, so if I put little mixes right here, it is up to you how you do it. There are so many variations in Copperplate that it is, you know, it very much depends on the hand of the writer. But as long as it's got that distinguishable full pressure stroke, you've got no weight on the left hand side. If you have weight on both sides, which I have seen before in various Instagram posts, but if you have pressure, see if I can put this in over here somewhere, there we go. If we have weight on both sides, oh, I'm running out right there we go, there we go. Okay, if we have weight on both sides, even with that simplified crossbar, in the middle here, it is gonna look too busy. So for me, whenever there is a backwards universal line of beauty that leads into a full pressure stroke, so with an A, an N, and an M, or a W, or an upside down V, I suppose, then there must be one side that is lighter than the other. Okay, so it's going to be too busy in this section. It's going to look too heavy. Also, when you're doing a full word, it is going to draw attention to that area. So if we go back to the word at, which I'm seemingly just doing over and over, which is fine. But if we're looking at the word at, or I could spice it up. We could do the word all, I suppose. Okay. So if I'm looking at the word at, okay. All right. The gap between your shades right here and here, so gap between either you can call them your downstrokes, your shades. I think shades is a more technical term from Spencerian, but I've heard it banded around a lot, so whichever way you learn it. So the gap between your downstrokes here should be an O apart, or an oval apart, like a lowercase o apart. So that means if you have weight on this side as well, it is gonna look too heavy. Yeah, So if I fit an O just in here really carefully, there we go. We should have an O of space right in here that is roughly, and I mean it's eyeballing at best here, that is roughly the same size as the O contained within the T. Okay, if you've got them too close together, it is going to draw too much attention. If you've got them too far apart, then it might obscure your word. So spacing is a really big thing that a lot of calligraphers do struggle with. And I do think it depends on your hand as to what you... Oh, I've got a lot of things missing there, haven't I? There we go. So you can see all my notes. It does depend on your hand, so when you are writing, don't be afraid to lay over. Layout paper is really good, or tracing paper is also really good. Thin, almost clear paper over the top, and don't be afraid to draw your ovals in. So I regularly do that, just so I can check my spacing, particularly in finished pieces. Okay. That's all for a capital A or a majuscule of A. I will catch you in the next video. Bye.